I am excited and thrilled today to introduce you to our guest. Her name is Judith Morgan. And Judith Morgan is a business and a wealth coach. She is based in the UK, and she has a wealth of experience. She started out in business early when she was when she was 22. She started her own accountancy business and was able to sell that later for a six-figure sum. She's been in the business world relating to finance and wealth, and she balances that with this depth of compassion that she has for making sure that people don't just have an excellent business experience, but they also have broad and expansive lives and very inspiring and empowered lives. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm just loving reading what Judith writes in her blog posts and listening to other interviews that she's done. And I discovered a blog post that she wrote which piqued my interest and made me want to ask her to be interviewed today with us on this topic. And so the topic is the You First Project. So this is all about women making that decision to shift from putting everybody else first in their lives to putting themselves first. I wanted to bring Judith on because she has a depth of experience business-wise as well as personally with this, and I know that you're going to enjoy the conversation. So Judith, welcome.
Hello, Christi. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being willing to join us. So Judith, I want to just jump right in and just ask you a question about yourself. And I'm curious to know what motivates you and just why you do the things that you do.
I think I've always been self-employed, Christi, as you said, for about nearly 40 years now. And I mainly chose that route because a job never really suited me. I always wanted to be the boss, and I wanted them to pay me more than they thought I was worth. So it was obvious from the early stages of my career that I would work for myself. But I was quite driven, I think. I was driven and ambitious. And I think that was, I don't know whether motivator is the right word, driver, definitely, up to a certain point in my life. And I think it was perhaps to be visible, to be seen, to get the attention that maybe my parents didn't give me, or something like that. I mean, Richard Branson always says that behind every successful entrepreneur, there's a "I'll show you," and I think "I'll show you" was quite motivating to me in the first half of my career. I don't know if you know Wayne Dyer, but he's got a wonderful concept in his work, which is the first half of your career is about ambition, and the second half is about meaning. And I've definitely moved into the meaning stage. And now my motivator, I think, is to help other women, solopreneurs mainly, working from home, which is quite isolating. What motivates me, I guess, is that there's more and more of them. The number of the self-employed keeps swelling, which is great.
Yeah, both empowering as well as isolating, as you mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, double-edged sword. Yes, it is empowering, you're right, and that's what I love about it.
So when it comes to this topic of women learning the skill and the art of putting themselves first, why do you think this is so important for us to discuss as women? I think it's all to do with, I don't know about you, Christi, but I was brought up to be a nice girl. Yes.
And nice girls put other people first. And if you go on to be, a wife and a mother, or a partner and a mother, or particularly mothers, I think, there is a stage, isn't there, when your children are little, where you can't put yourself first, and that's quite right, because they can't look after themselves. And so I think that reinforces our upbringing. I should say at this point that I'm neither a mother nor a partner, so I've got the luxury, perhaps, it being somewhat easier for me to put myself first, and many looking in would say, well, if you're single, you've always put yourself first, but it's not quite as simple as that. I think there's conditioning which we need to throw over, and I think the most important thing, Christi, is that only you can live your life and only I can live my life. And if either of us lives a half life, that's a terrible waste. And if your life is always about putting others first, you've missed a dimension.
Yes, my whole body is just vibrating with what you're saying. That's part of what motivates me, is that I see this unnecessary suffering, and I know that was part of my own encounter with this topic, which was waking up and realizing I'd been living like a zombie, living like a half life. Yeah.
Yeah. I think waking up is exactly what happens, and it's usually when you've been pushed a bit and pushed a bit and pushed a bit and pushed a bit more, and then the day comes when it's the last straw, isn't it? And it's either exhaustion or ME or illness or breakdown of some description. It can be quite small, but I think that's the point at which you go, okay, time to own my own life.
And then that's a scenario where you're kind of pushed to the edge. And some people, I know that there are many women who don't even realize that they are behaving out of this cultural expectation of niceness, and they don't even realize that they're putting everybody else first. Do you think that there are signs that we can look for to try to identify this before it gets to that place where it's push comes to shove?
I think we always know. So, for instance, if you ask me to do something I don't want to do, I know. If I agree to do it because I'm a nice girl, I kind of know at some level I'm out of integrity. But if it seems like a small thing, it's okay-ish, so I agree to it. And then next time you ask me, I can't say no because I didn't say no last time. And so I think numbers of little examples add up, and we know at some level. It's just maybe we don't want to examine it, or we can't see another way, or we don't know how to say no, or we don't know how to ask for our own needs to be met, or even think that we're entitled to do that. So I think there's always lots of little signs. They may be easier to see when you look back.
Yes. Yeah, I know that's been my case as well. So I'm curious to know how this has played out in your life. What was this like, and what was it that caused you to shift?
Yeah, I think I was brought up to be very dutiful. I'm not ashamed of that, actually. I still think it's a good thing. Qualities of responsibility and punctuality and being somebody that you can rely upon and trust, all sorts of good qualities. I'm proud of that. But I think I didn't really know my own mind, or my own heart is probably a better way of looking at it. So when people asked me to do things I didn't want to do, wanting to be liked, wanting to be loved, I'm a very caring person. I wanted to look after other people, but I didn't want to. I ended up in a place having exhausted myself doing it. And then with all these expectations of, well, you've always done it before, you'll do it now. It's all unsaid, isn't it? This is not out in the open. It's just,
yes.
It's operating systems. It's how people operate. And I think in my experience, the men in my life had been brought up to expect it. So it wasn't really ever discussed in my childhood, but it was that my mother and I would support my brother and father, not in a sexist way, I don't think, more of a habitual way, although I think it is sexist in hindsight, but it's just that's the way it was. Men are more important. My father was the breadwinner. My brother was more likely than me to have a great career, and we were there in support. We were almost equal. We were slightly less equal. Their opportunities, their choices, their decisions were more empowered and came first. And I think I had a resentment of that, and it bubbled under. Until a very big explosion when I was 37 and some ensuing therapy, which helped to understand my problems but not to solve them. Personal development has been more helpful in providing solutions to me than therapy was, but I think it's really useful to understand how you got yourself in this mess.
So lots of kind of obligation. It was almost as if you were fulfilling a role that had been predetermined for you.
Yeah.
So what was it like after that? After you did the personal development and therapy and understood, what do you think that?
Yeah, it was a bit lumpy to begin with. It's because you're learning new behaviours, aren't you? So it's not comfortable. It's absolutely not comfortable. It's like, it's like ants itching you. You have to remember, you're learning to walk again, you're learning to talk again. So it's learned behaviour. You're back to that unconscious, what is it? It's conscious incompetence. Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're back to that, aren't you? And you're training yourself in new ways of being and becoming more and more comfortable a little bit at a time with the new ways over a number of years, I think. It's not all change. No, it wasn't for me. It's been a journey since then of 22 years. I love it. I'm still learning every day. I'm still surprised by other people every day. I think it's changed. Life has changed in those 22 years. And I suppose you get to a certain stage of life where you get a little bit past caring. It's me or me, my way or the highway. It's my life. That's the core thing. It's my life, Christi, and only I can live it. And I've got to have total freedom to live it my way.
So it's not things don't change in one fell swoop. It's incremental. It's messy. It's frustrating at times. And yet it's your life. It's yours.
Well, I think it's worth it. You know it. It's worth it. So like anything you want to learn, a new language or a new skill, it's worth pushing through. I think that's the thing. So the motivation, your word, is quite strong. The goal is worthy. And you know that you're worth it by then, I think. Usually, friends and the people that love you will encourage you that you are worth it. But usually everybody's got somebody who will stick up for them and get them to see themselves that they're worthy of more. And then you start to ask for more, and the people that care about you provide it, and the people that don't clear off, which makes it easier, actually.
Absolutely, yes. So there are a whole set of challenges that, like if you shift back to when you were fulfilling that role, there are a whole set of challenges when you live life that way, and then an entirely different set of challenges when you're owning your life and when you're doing this. And so I'm wondering what kinds of challenges, like if you were talking to a woman who's not really made this shift yet, what kinds of challenges have you encountered, and would you share with her that she might encounter so that she could kind of get her head wrapped around it and not be surprised?
Yes. I'd start with something easy involving somebody that didn't matter. So if there was somebody in your life that you could practice on that's making unreasonable requests of you and making you feel, icky, uncomfortable, no, I don't want to do that, but I don't want to say, but it doesn't matter if that person goes away. You can practice on people like that. I think we always know, but people would. I think nice girls do what I call hand-wringing. We do a lot of nice girl hand-wringing, which is, I know I shouldn't do this, but I don't know how not to. And so a debate with a client would go around that. I can't do what I want to do because of this. Now, if it involves small children, they're probably right. If it involves other separate adults, they're probably not right, because that person is responsible for living their own life and looking after their own needs, not us. So I think we've got to see ourselves, you've got to look at that oxygen mask moment in the aeroplane. It drops down, you put it on yourself, you put it on your child, and every other adult in the building is responsible for putting it on themselves. It's not easy. I'd start with something small and doable. I'd say, give me the smallest example of something you don't want to do or where you want to say something you don't feel able to, and let's get some practice in. I remember thinking of it as, I don't know what you call them in America. Do you call it an estate car? What do you call a big car that's very long with lots of seats?
Limousine?
Yes. Like a family car with, you've got a row of seats behind the driver and probably another row behind that. And
yes, a station wagon.
Yeah, that's it, station wagon, yes. And on the back you've got a tow bar. And behind you there's a caravan full of people. And the people that matter are in the station wagon, and the people that don't matter are in the caravan. You can lean out of the back of the car and unhook the caravan, and they all fall away. Immediately you're lighter. You can go faster. You can take better care of you. You can take better care of the people that really matter that also take care of you. There are a lot of people in the world who get their needs met through others. And you have to make up your own mind whether you want to be the facilitator of that or not.
Mhm. Mhm. So for someone who's not quite sure about this, not yet convinced
Yes.
that this would be the right thing for them, what do you think, looking back, just in your own experience, was the cost of you putting yourself last?
Yeah. Ooh. I think delay. So if I'd made this switch sooner, life would have been... I wish I'd started sooner to prioritise my own needs. I do remember that while there was some point in which I said to my brother, overturning the habit of a lifetime, this Christmas I don't think I'll come home, I'll go and do something else. And I think it was after one of our parents had died, perhaps, and so there was a chance to break a habit. I remember him saying to me, do what you have to do. And that's a really good sign, because that's from one adult who understands that my life choices are my own. Mm-hmm. And so I was given permission to, create a new way of being from somebody that loves me, who's not going to leave my life because I'm making it slightly less comfortable for him. Somebody who's not yet convinced, I think, don't change anything. It's hard to change things before they get unbearable. I would applaud somebody who's forward thinking enough to see it coming. I'm not sure that the motivation is strong enough to make changes if it's just theoretical. It's when you start to notice discomfort and compromise and restriction and, all sorts of things like that cage you in. I think that's when the desire to change becomes strong enough to take some action. And I don't need any of my clients to take action until they're ready. I wouldn't force somebody to do anything at all or oblige them or even encourage them. I would listen to them, support them, and expect them to turn up one day and say, right, I've had enough. We're going to do something about it now.
So it's waiting for that internal motivation to show up, for it to get uncomfortable enough.
I think so. I don't think we make many changes until we're uncomfortable, do we?
Yeah, I would agree. It needs to look less comfortable where you need to go, and more uncomfortable where you are.
Where you are. That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
In NLP terms, they talk about people who are away from and people who are towards. Are you a person that goes away from pain or towards what you want? And I'm a towards, but actually we're rare. It's about 80-20. Most people move away from things that make them uncomfortable, and I think that's right.
I see. That's interesting. I didn't understand that 80-20 percentage.
I think I'm right. I may be making it up, but it's more people are motivated by, we go to work because we've got to pay the bills. We're running out of money, so we'll work harder. Moving away from discomfort is more motivating for most people.
I see. So in terms of of looking back, would you say that the turbulence that you experienced during that time of change, where things were, you went through that unconscious incompetence, and you learned and honed this new way of being, you upgraded your operating system.
Yeah.
Was all of what you did worth it?
Yes.
And you'd do it over again?
Yeah, I would do it over again. It was worth it. And I think that at the time when you're doing it. It's not like I was some kind of idealist. I knew it was worth doing. I think I had no choice. I don't feel I had a choice. Yeah.
Well, my next question, I think you've already asked. I was going to ask you a question about, women being reluctant to change, but adventurous enough to test it out. And I loved your example of finding someone who's, it doesn't matter if they stay in your life or not, and practice with them.
Yeah, I think so. I think you'll be surprised. I mean, I don't want you to think I'm a perfect, version of this. I still have people who I find very challenging, and for me they are people who I perceive to be needy, because I'm very self-reliant, and when somebody comes to me and needs something from me, I find that quite difficult. So I look for a place in myself if I can willingly and lovingly meet that need, or if I feel I've got to do it out of some duty which may be misplaced. And if I can't do it out of the former, I need to say, no, I can't help you, I'm afraid. And my experience is that the needy always get their needs met. So if it's not me, it'll be somebody else. So do I want to be the pushover who will be a ready solution for that person who's not self-sufficient? Now, obviously, a world in which we're all self-sufficient is not very nice, actually. We're very human. We want to give and receive love, give and take, help other people, all of that sort of thing. I'm not saying I've gone from over helper to cold. I want there to be a happy medium.
And I think there's a different energy about it, too, when you have two individuals who are self-sufficient, but you're collaborating, or you're... that's a totally different feel. I agree.
And there needs to be give and take. I think where it's painful is if you're in a situation where somebody's always the taker and you're always the giver.
Yes, total imbalance.
Something I found very useful is, this is something that really helped me. When there's an abundance of everything, so when I've got loads of time, loads of money, loads of resources, loads of chocolate biscuits, whatever it is, you're welcome to any of them, Christi. You're absolutely welcome. But when times are difficult and I haven't got any of those, and I'm worried about my own ability to access all of those, if it comes right down to the wire and I have to choose between you and me, it's always got to be me. And so when the margin really narrows down to you or me, if I've got loads of spare, I can give it to you. Anything you want. Yes, absolutely. So, for instance, in the case of this interview, isn't it? Would you give an interview? Yes, love to. If I was really with my back against the wall and I couldn't do it, it would be much easier for me to say, no, I can't do it. And that I find quite helpful.
That's a great way to put it, because it and we all go through those times in life, where you don't have time to spare, you don't have more to give, right? It's a time to really focus internally and to care for yourself, and you've got to be able to kind of maybe navigate and adjust along that spectrum, depending on where you are.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. And for me, I think the difficulty is saying no, and assuming that my asker will crumble, which of course they won't, they'll just go and find somebody else. And what I find is that the people the needy that I fear saying no to, when I eventually say no after months or years or days or weeks of resentment and anxiety about how I'm going to say no, they turn out to be surprisingly robust and go off and make another solution. So, to a certain extent, I've hallucinated it all. But, there's a request in my inbox now. I shut my email before speaking to you, but the last thing that happened was that an email request came in from a friend who's been very kind to me, and she wants me to help her go and do something. And she makes lots of requests like this, and I have to I don't want to do it. I tell you now, I don't want to do it. But I have to I have to sort of sit and think about it for a bit. So she's made a request, I don't want to do it. What's the solution here? Is it to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I'm too busy, which is a version of the truth? Or is it to look at my diary and see when I could help? And there's no point in me doing that second one unless I can do it lovingly. So if I can't find a space where I'd be, emotional space and a physical space, where I'd be completely relaxed and happy to do it, then I'm better off not doing it at all, because I'll just be full of resentment.
Yes, and that resentment and that sense of obligation builds tension and distance between you and another person.
And also it hurts me quite a lot.
Yes.
It hurts me because I feel I've gone against something, a value, I suppose. I've gone against a value.
Let let me ask you a question. In my experience, I've traced this need to please people, back to when I was very young, and what I've identified is that I'm a very highly sensitive person, and when I got down to the real base of this, I was putting other people first because I couldn't stand to feel their discomfort in my body.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Yes.
So
it makes perfect sense. Yes.
Well?
Yeah. Do you think you were? My coach calls it hallucinating. Were you making up their discomfort, or was their discomfort that you would feel in your body a fact, a real thing?
I think it probably was partial hallucination, and partial. I was feeling something in my body, and perhaps it was a result of this hallucination that I had in my mind that I felt that tension. But that was my motivation. I wanted everybody to feel good. I wanted me to feel good. I wanted them to feel good, and it was worth me giving me up to feel that peace.
God, that's so wise. That is so wise and resonates with me a lot. But what I'm realizing is wrong with it, as you describe it, is it comes at some expense to you, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yes.
And a responsibility that isn't yours, that you've assumed.
Right. Yes. So it's interesting when you peel back these layers to really, understand, and it does help me going forward. Just really understand that I mean, it's a gift to be able to tune into a person and to really understand and relate to where they're coming from, but not to own it, to take that responsibility.
Yeah. I think even as I've been talking to you, I've realized that one of the ways, when somebody asks me to do something I don't want to do, and I fear they're going to be unhappy, and I might feel that in my body too, which is quite likely, I've realised that I've only envisaged the yes or no scenario. I haven't thought, is there a better question I could ask, like, is there anybody else that could help you with this?
Yes. And I think that part, being able to go and hold open that space and that connection with the other person. But there is an answer out there, and it may not be what you asked, and it may not be what I thought I could agree to, but it's out there, and I'm willing to kind of be here with you to figure that out.
Yeah. I think it's also about giving and receiving. I think my pattern was, and to some extent still is, to want to be the giver. I think often that's a position of power, isn't it? Maybe that made me feel powerful in some way, I don't know. Receiving, I'm slightly less good at. Asking, I'm also slightly less good at. But, for instance, when I do ask, I would always say to the person who'd given to me, and is there something I can do for you? And that feels, it's that yin and yang, isn't it, that balance. If it's balanced, this doesn't ever become an issue. It's only when it gets out of balance, and it's all one way, that we're out of balance, we're out of sync, and we know it.
Yes. So I'm wondering if we could shift this slightly, and if you could share with me from your coaching perspective how you might see this playing out in a business setting, and what maybe just thoughts around that.
Yes. Most of my clients are women who work for themselves from home, and how it would present in our coaching calls is that they haven't had time to get done the issues that I'm working with them on. So they're building their own small business, and they haven't had time to do something, or they haven't prioritized doing something because children or partners or domestic responsibilities or family or people who think because they're working at home they're not really working, so they can call on them for anything. That's one big area, which is I'm not important enough, so I let all of these other people railroad me. Another one is illness or exhaustion, because I've just run myself ragged looking after other people and I don't prioritise my own self-care. I think those are the two big indicators. Both of them are self-sabotage for their businesses. So that's how it comes into my life, which is, it's so easy, isn't it, when you're looking into somebody else's life to help them and see what's wrong. and it's that the space that's left for them is too small.
Wow, that is such an elegant way to put it. The space that's left for them is too small. It's, a great visual. It's like,
and I think we don't think that's a choice, but it is. We've chosen it, albeit by default.
So I have in my mind's eye a picture, an image of a woman, with her elbows spreading out, just making more space for her to exist in her own life.
I think that's a good one. It's a good image. Yeah, it is. I'm a singer. And I'm also a very big person, and I've sung in choirs in big venues in London. And if you're in a choir of say 150 people, space is quite tight. But if you're to perform at your best, you need to be able to inflate your rib cage. You need space to do your best work. I've got my elbows out now, so if I can't breathe because I'm in tight in a too small a space, there's no point in my being there as a singer, because singing is about breathing, and that's just life. If I haven't got room to operate, do my best work, if I haven't got the optimum conditions to do my best work, I can't do it.
So in a case like that, how do you recommend women, adjust and stick their elbows out, symbolically, when in either in their personal lives or in their business, to make that space where they can perform at an optimum level?
Yeah. Well, we would look for it's small changes again. We would look for, so what's the problem here? Well, because I've got small children, my house needs so much attention all of the time. Because I'm not working in a proper job and my business isn't successful yet, my partner is slightly resentful about paying for domestic care or whatever it is, so childcare or cleaners or something like that. And so you're in this vicious circle where you can achieve precisely nothing. So we look for what small change could we make that might buy my client a bit more time. And it's usually child minding or domestic help or outsourcing something. Even if all my client does that in that time is to lie down and get some rest, they're going to be topping up their energy banks. So we're looking for small changes that mount up, something affordable that you can buy in at the bottom end, if that makes sense, to make the resource that's you go a bit further. It is quite logical. I think logically they're with me. Emotionally it's difficult. Again,
and when emotionally, are you referring to like maybe guilt that they might experience for, or what do you mean?
Yes, guilt is one of it. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do all of this. We have a big supermarket in the UK called Sainsbury's. I don't know what your equivalent would be. What's one of your big supermarkets?
Well, we have Walmart. That seems
Walmart. That's it, Walmart. Yeah. Okay, so one of my friends who I've known for 20 years is also my beautician. And I helped her. I was her accountant at the beginning, and then I helped her set up her own beauty therapy business. And when she started, she had two very tiny little boys. So probably one of them had just been born and the other one was 2. And about 2 or 3 years into the business, she was in Walmart one day. And you know how the goods come down the conveyor belt fast. She couldn't keep up. She couldn't pack her own groceries fast enough, and she had a little bit of a meltdown at the till. There were tears, but the brilliant thing was the supermarket just brought a chair and a cup of tea, and it made me realise that it must happen in the supermarket every day. That point of stress at which a woman breaks down because she's doing too much is often quite a trivial place. I'm just bagging my groceries, but they're coming down. The woman's throwing them down the conveyor belt. They're coming down faster than I cope with. It's the last straw, I give up.
Oh, I have such compassion for that woman.
Me too. But I was so impressed by the supermarket, and when I realised how well they've handled it, I realised it must happen every day. Because women are, trying to do too much. We're superheroes. It may be men. This may not be only a female thing anymore because men are more like us. But we're talking about women because we know women and we are women. And it seemed to me that the supermarket has a system for this, which means it happens all the time, which is that's a good thing.
It's a chronic condition.
Yes, it's a system. I bet it's fun. I bet they laugh, but it's not funny really. It's like, there's a final straw. And in my own case, it was things like, when it got very, very stressful, I would forget my PIN number at where you're trying to get money out of the hole in the wall, There's always some sign that you're at the tipping point and you're doing too much and you have to pull back because you frighten yourself a bit. You have to pull back and get some space. You have to breathe. Quite often with clients, we breathe on my coaching calls with them. Let's just sit here and breathe. We'll breathe. Sit and breathe for about 5 minutes because there's not even time for breathing in some people's lives.
Yes.
Practice. Breathing. Sometimes we do crying. I don't mind what they bring. If my hour with them is the sanctuary, that's fine. You say you're a business coach, but you can't just coach people on the business because they bring the whole of their humanity with them.
Absolutely. And to that, what I'm noticing, I've been in some of the talks I've given recently, I've been referring to our self-value as on a scale, and like 1 being down here, like near the carpet, near the floor, and 10 being, up here where I am absolutely valuable. I do make space in my life for myself. I nourish myself at highest levels, and I would imagine, and actually I'm personally experiencing this as well as a business owner, or I should say a person who's self-employed, that my level, where I fall on that scale, is a direct correlation with how successful I am in my business and with what I'm doing with people. If I'm at a 1, I'm not really contributing very much. I'm just not capable. Like, I don't even have, like, my sense of value in myself is so low that I don't think that I can contribute. But when I'm valuing myself at a higher level, then I'm able to bring more, and I just am more. I'm like my full self.
Yes, and I think it becomes a virtuous circle where when you're in that good place, you attract more good stuff to yourself as well. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like a not really a snowball, but it's just like a steady stream of things coming.
It's a sort of energetic attraction, I think.
Yeah.
When you're in a good place, everybody wants a piece of it.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
You're magnetic. Yes. I think I'm with you. A lot of my self-esteem and value comes from feeling that I've done good in the world. I would like to take it even a stage further, actually, which is that I'm a person of value, whether or not I'd like my esteem to come from inside. I'd like to know that I am a person of value to whatever degree I'm contributing. And I think that's the next sort of spiritual level up. It's where I'm going next. It's not where I am. I don't want you to think that at all. But I agree with you. When people say you've been so helpful, you've been so great, it makes me feel good about myself. But I think it's possible to feel good about yourself just when you get up in the morning without having done anything at all.
Exactly. It's your own inherent worth. And really knowing that.
Yeah. And I think that's the harder work. I think the one where we're getting feedback from other people is a bit easier because all you've got to do is do something in a way. And I know there are times in our lives when even that's not possible, but if you show up and I love to serve and you love to serve clearly as well, and people derive value and they say nice things, you feel great, you do. But I want to feel that whether or not I'm interacting with other people.
Oh my goodness. Yes. It was interesting. I had part of what kind of launched me down this path was a sabbatical that I took, and I got to one of those intense, overwhelmed places, and I had to just let go of a lot of obligations that I had said yes to. And what I noticed was that in this small spiritual community, when I was doing things for the community, I would, people would talk with me, and then when I backed out and didn't, it was as if I didn't exist. However, what I noticed was that, going further into reflection, it was because of my own thinking that I wasn't worthy if I wasn't doing. And then once I switched that, then it was like people saw me again. It was almost like I went incognito.
Really interesting. That's really interesting. I've done sabbaticals too. I've done 2 or 3 long ones, and I think that when you retreat from the world, if all your feed has come from the world, the feed that makes you feel good about yourself, if you then retreat from it and that's not there, you can go into quite a dark place.
Yes.
And you can come back from it too, I think. And I think it's valuable to have both, because I think if you are in retreat, you realise how much of it comes from external sources and how it's time to, reinforce that internally. And what you realised in that was that you had a choice about that, which is very empowering, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm noticing the time, and so I want to kind of come to a close here. I so loved your insight and your wisdom and your suggestions, and I'm curious to know what is on the horizon for you. Like, what are you excited about these days in your own life and in your own business?
That's a very good question. I have had a dream on hold for a bit, and I've made a decision that I'm going to have it, ready or not, on the 1st of December. I went to an island you might have been to in the Caribbean called St. Martin, and I fell in love with it in 2006, and I spent a month there in 2006. I did it again in 2009 and 2010, I think, and I want to go and live there for maybe 6 months of a year, maybe for most of the next decade of my life. And it's been on my vision board for a very long time. And it's like, soon, I'm going soon, I'm going soon, I'm going soon. I went, well, actually, no, I'm going on the 1st of December 2014. For 6 no idea, don't get overexcited. I've no idea how it's going to happen. I've just made up my mind it will. And that's a long way from England and a long way from everybody. And I've been in retreat a bit in the last 2 or 3 years in preparation for that. But it does seem like a supremely self-ish act, if you know what I mean, because I'm doing it for me, exclusively for me, by myself. So it needs to be, I feel quite brave, age 60. I wouldn't have felt so brave when I was 30, but doing something like that, I'll be there for my 60th birthday, for me, exclusively for me, despite everybody else's doubts and anxieties. That's my exciting thing, and I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I trust that it will, and I'm moving towards that. It may not happen precisely on that date, but it will happen. And it's been in my heart and in my mind and in my intentions for quite a long time, but now I've got a bit more serious about it.
That's beautiful. It's interesting because I don't consider it selfish. Like I always rephrase that to self-full.
Yes,
it's like
nice.
You're giving yourself, you're nourishing yourself at this deep level, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Beautiful.
Thank you. I set up my business so I could coach people from anywhere in the world. You and I now, we're connecting across the continent. It would be actually easier to speak to you if I was St. Martin because I'm closer to your time zone. So it really doesn't matter where I am in the world, except it's my jumping off, my preparedness to jump off, I think.
Well, congratulations on making the decision.
Thank you.
So, and if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and do that?
JudithMorgan.com is my website. I blog every day. Send me an email, which is a contact form on the site. I'd love to chat to everybody. I offer anybody that's interested a free session on Skype so I can get to know them. There's no obligation to become a client, just so that they know what I can do for them and I know a bit about them and their business. I just love talking to small business owners who have decided to provide for themselves and their families and work from home, and I've got 40 years of experience of doing that, and I'd like to help them. So get in touch is the answer, Christi. JudithMorgan.com.
Excellent. So, Judith, any parting words of wisdom, anything else that you feel compelled to say on this topic?
Yeah, I think the really important thing, we touched on it a bit, if I die without having lived my life to the fullest, my life goes unlived. And we can't do that. It's a terrible waste. Live your own life. If you don't, it will go unlived, and that's a terrible, terrible, terrible waste. So we have to do it in acknowledgement of the value of the opportunity that we've been given by having a life.
Yes.
Have a life. Take half an hour off and think, am I having my best life? Am I living my best life? If I don't live it, who else is going to? So what am I going to do about it? It's that really. I feel quite strongly that, you must live your life and I must live mine. And you may or may not have responsibilities. I may have fewer, but we have a responsibility to ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a beautiful quote Martin Luther King Jr. had, and it was about how the interconnectedness that we share. We're all tied into. I'm going to paraphrase. We're all tied into a garment of destiny. Our paths are all intertwined, and I can't be who I ought to be unless you are who you ought to be, and you can't be who you ought to be unless I am who I ought to be. And so together, together we can make things happen in the world. Yeah,
that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And in his context, of course, it's about standing up for what's important. And that's given me goosebumps, Christi. That's a perfect quote. I'll have to go off and Google it now.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you so much, Judith. It's been such an honor to share this time with you. And I wish you luck in St. Martin.
Thank you. Thank you. If you're on a cruise ship, let me know.
Oh, definitely.